Hey guys, welcome back to another video in this channel. Today we continue with our Christmas week, and the song says something like, "On the fourth day of Christmas, next it came to me." I hate singing, sorry for that, I just wanted to try it out. So, today we're gonna go with this guy right here. I was thinking about what to show you guys for this last couple of days, and I thought it would be a good idea to have like a super mini project. So, it's gonna be a two-part video. Today, the fourth day of our Christmas week, we're gonna model and prepare this with UVs and everything, and then tomorrow I'm gonna show you how to get everything into Marmoset so that we can have a very nice effect on our little like a health potion. Now I hope that everyone can follow this video along because it's gonna be like a relatively basic one. I think anyone with basic knowledge of Maya and Marmoset should be able to do it. However, all of the things that I do inside of Maya, you should be able to do them inside of Blender as well. I was debating whether or not to try it on Blender, but I'm still not super confident with some of the tools that Blender has. I'm not sure if I can get the final result. So I'm gonna download this image. This is by Servalt in DeviantArt, and so we're gonna be using his concept. Thank you, Servalt, if you're seeing this video. I really like your work, and we are gonna be using your concept art here for inspiration. So let's go, of course, to our Nextcode Live, and we're gonna drop this inside of our source image folders, and we open Maya. Now, while Maya is opening, guys, a couple of news. I'm gonna repeat this tomorrow on tomorrow's video as well. But if you're already watching this, we're gonna have a couple of days off. I'm gonna be out of town. I'm gonna be spending the holidays with my family. So there's not gonna be any video on Saturday and on Sunday. Okay, we're not gonna have videos on Saturday and Sunday. I'm sorry about that. I did try to think about something, but I think everyone's gonna be, or most of you probably are gonna be with your families, depending on if you celebrate Christmas or not. So just use those days to rest as well. It's the end of the year. We're getting on that final stretch. Next week we are gonna have normal videos on Monday, and then I believe we have our live stream. So I'm gonna check that out and remind you of that, guys, on the next video. And on the next weekend, so that will be, I believe it's the 1st and 2nd of January. We're not gonna have videos either, okay? We're gonna rest those 2 days, or this weekend and next weekend. So just keep that in mind. Got it? So perfect. Now we're here. Let's go File, Set Project, and we're gonna set, of course, our Nextcode Live project, and we're gonna start with our modeling phase. So I'm gonna go into my front view, space. Oh, let me turn on the car neck thingy. There we go. So down here, remember, we're always gonna have the shortcuts, most of them. So we're gonna go to the front view. So spacebar, Maya, and then front view. And I'm gonna go here to this little icon, which is the image plane icon, and I'm gonna select this guy right here. Now we can make this a little bit bigger. I'm gonna rotate it so that we have as close as a front view as possible. This is not perfectly perspective, or like it's not a perfect perspective, but that's fine. So there's tons of ways to do the crystal right here, or the bottle itself. The important thing about glass, whenever you're working with glass, is you need to do the thickness. A lot of people think that just by having like a thin layer and creating the remaining part, that should be it. But no, you definitely want the thickness. So I'm gonna use curves for this one because I think it's a little bit easier. So I'm gonna go create curve tools, and I'm gonna use an EP curve. I'm gonna start down here on this like grid point right here, and then I'm gonna start going around like this, and I'm gonna stop right there. Okay, so as you can see, that's a very nice curve. I'm gonna go into control vertices, and the control vertices are the points that modify this curve. So I'm gonna modify this curve a little bit so that it matches the roundness that I'm going for. For instance, this guy, so I'm gonna scale them down so that they're flat on the bottom. And yeah, like I probably would like this guys to be flat as well. Now I'm not completely worried because I'm gonna be using this just as a base, but just keep in mind that you can change a couple of things. Like for instance, I think I'm just gonna leave it. Look, even just like delete this point right there. There we go, that's better. So now I'm gonna grab this guy right here, this curve, and I'm gonna go into my surfaces option, and I'm gonna use a revolve option. Now what the revolve option does is it will take a curve and it will revolve it around the whole axis, right? In this case, the y-axis, 360 degrees. I do have a couple of settings. I think I've talked about this once before, but if you haven't seen the other videos, let's reset the settings here. The important ones that you need to take into consideration is we don't want NURBS, we want polygons. We don't want triangles, we want quads. We don't want standard fit, we want general. And we're gonna select per span and per span. Like those options that I just mentioned, those are the important ones whenever you're doing a revolve, so that when you apply the revolve, as you can see, we get this very nice effect. Now, the important thing about this one, as you can see, is that I started on the very like grid, on the origin of the world. If you were to start, or if your curve was like somewhere not in the middle of the grid, like here, you would get this sort of thing. So it's very important that you are in the middle of the grid so that you get this effect right here. Now, I need to delete history. It's very important to delete history so that when we modify the polygons or the curve, nothing number the other element. The curve, we don't need it anymore, so I'm just gonna hide it just in case. And I'm gonna go back to front view. I was gonna press number 1 on my number pad because that's the shortcut for Blender. That's one of the issues when you're switching between softwares. So I'm gonna grab this guy right here. I'm gonna make it smaller. I'm gonna scale it in. I'm gonna grab this one right here, make it taller, and then I'm gonna extrude this thing. So Control E to extrude this thing out. Now this, as you can see, will create thickness. Okay, so this will create the thickness that I'm looking for in my element. And the thickness is connected, of course, up here, which is very important. Now that I have the thickness, I can grab this guys right here and extrude them out again to create this little lid right there. Now you can see that we get this weird effect. Just grab all of those and scale them in Y so that we have a flat surface. And that's it. We have our potion bottle. Now I'm gonna grab this edge right here and this edge right here. I'm gonna bevel them and just give it a small fraction. Probably 2 segments. I think we can afford 2 segments. Remember that inside of Marmoset, we do have the option to do a subdivision, but let's think that this is going to be a game asset, and we want the game asset to look really good. So we're not going to have access to smoothing elements. So if we want the transitions like this one to be a little bit nicer, like that one right there, we definitely need to bevel it and give it a small fraction. Select the whole object. We're going to go mesh display and soften edge to make sure that everything is soft. And that's it. That's our bottle. You can see that there's a little bit of segmentation going on, even though it's I think it's like a 24-sided like object, but still we're always going to get that sort of thing. It's unless we up the polygons, it's impossible to get rid of it. Now, for the liquid inside, this is very important. It's something that I actually learn fairly frequently because my knowledge about like liquids was outdated, and I did a little bit of research, and there's a new method about doing liquids properly. And when I was learning 3D 10 years ago, my teacher told us that whenever you had a liquid, like let's say you had like a glass of wine or something, right? So you would model your glass of wine. You had to model the liquid like this. Okay, so inside the walls of your object. And that was true a couple of years ago when render engines were not as strong with ray tracing and calculating like proper elements. However, now they've improved quite a bit, and if you do this and leave like a little bit of a pocket of air in this area, you are going to have some issues. And I've encountered this issue in Arnold, I've encountered this issue in Marmoset, I've encountered this issue with RenderMan as well, so it is something that has been kind of like change. And now what they recommend is that the liquid actually overlaps with the object. Why is this? Well, because ray tracing, what it does is it will shoot a ray, and every time it touches a surface, it will calculate how light should refract or change on that area, right? So if I leave it like this, it's 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6 calculations all the way on up to the side, right? Because there's this pocket of air. However, if the object is overlapping like this, whoop, I believe, if my theory is correct, that you would only get, like, let's go to a different color, like 1, 2, you get the second one here, and then it just goes through 3 and 4. So it behaves, or it calculates the refraction of the light more accurately because it considers these two objects, or these two like surfaces right here, to be on the same place, which is what normally happens when you pour water on a glass, right? Like water doesn't leave any pocket of air on the surface. So just keep that in mind. It's a little bit of a newish thing. I'm gonna go vertex here and control F11, and oh my god, we have a little bit of a problem here. The problem is that these vertices, as you can see, are not welded together. That's a problem, so let's fix that. First, we need to select these faces and delete them. We select all of these guys and merge to center, and then we can select like all of that edge, and merge to center as well. There we go. So now we select this vertex, Control F11, and there we go. And it's just a matter of doing shift, double click, shift, double click, shift, double click, shift, double click, all the way until the point where we want our potion to be. So I think we're gonna go right about there. Yeah, that seems like probably like one less. There we go. So all of those faces, I'm gonna say mesh, and I'm gonna edit mesh, sorry, and I'm gonna duplicate. And immediately when I duplicate, I can actually push these faces in, see? In or out. So I'm gonna push them in a little bit, so they're overlapping with the glass. Not so much though, like about there, just a little bit. And now we of course need to fix that object. So let's grab that new poly surface there, which is this one right here. We need to, first of all, flip the normals, because otherwise the liquid will be looking in the inside. So I'm gonna say mesh display reverse. And now I'm gonna grab this edge right here. I'm gonna say just extrude R and scale it in like this. And then I'm gonna say mesh, fill hole, grab that face and say edit mesh, poke, which is gonna create a vertex right there in the middle. Now, I definitely wanna add like a bevel here. Really small bevel, just a soft bevel. There we go. And that's it, because remember, we're not using subdivision. I mean, we could, and we can try it once we're in Marmoset on the next video. But so far, like this should work fairly well. Okay, so we have the bottle, we have the liquid. Perfect. Let's just grab both of them, clean them. So the history of freeze transformation, and rename it. It's always good to rename. Let's call this potion bottle, and this is gonna be potion. Well, potion, right? That's the potion itself. Now let's go for the cork. The cork is very easy. I'm just gonna grab a cylinder here, scale it up so that it matches the inside of the object as close as possible. Another option, if you want this cork to be like super tight on the object, we could grab these faces as well, like all of this, and do another duplicate. So I'm gonna say mesh, edit mesh, a duplicate. I am gonna push it. This one, since it's not a liquid, it doesn't really matter, but I would also recommend pushing it inside of the glass, just so that the refraction works a little bit better. Let's see how that works. If not, we'll come back and fix it. Now let's grab this second poly surface, and we need to, of course, fix it. So this one, let's extrude out. There we go. And then this one and this one, we're gonna say mesh, fill hole. Grab both elements, edit mesh, poke, to create like nice topology. Grab upper and lower parts, bevel, 2 segments and a small fraction, and we're definitely gonna say mesh display reverse, so that this thing is reversed. Now on the concept itself, you can see that the cork is slightly like skewed. It's not perfect. I think that's a good touch, so I'm just gonna like modify it like that so that it's not completely perfect. And you could even go to like a couple of vertices here and just move them around a little bit. It might change things a little bit. You could also use like soft selection, like small soft selection with V, to kind of like just tweak the cork a little bit. And again, this is making imperfections on the 3D work, and they tend to work very nicely. They tend to give us a nice result because it doesn't look perfectly uniform, which is something that you will never find in the real world. There's always a little bit of imperfection in objects, right? So okay, we have the cork, we have the bottle, we have the potion itself. Now let's go for those little like leather things that are around the object. So I think the easiest way to do this would be to go to the front view, grab this object and make it live with this little poly surface so that things snap to this element. And then I'm gonna go to quad draw, and I'm just gonna trace the general outline of this thing right there, like that. Now as you can see, we get that very nice effect. Okay, so that's like the first part of the object. So I am gonna remove the poly surface. Let's grab this object right there, and I'm gonna send to the pivot point and push it forward. Oh, just that one. There we go. Push it forward a little bit because it's supposed to be sitting on top. Let's grab this guy again, go back to live surface there, and now I can't see it, but I know that this thing is gonna convert into this sort of object down here. So I am gonna start drawing again. I'm gonna start like right about there. Let's add a couple more points. Like that. Like that, like that. There we go. Like that. And then it kind of flares out. Keeps going, all the way to the center. This is just an approximation. We're going to be modifying it nicely in just a second. There we go. So now, as you can see, we have this thing that goes all the way to the bottom there. Very important that we try to find the bottom. So I'm gonna grab this edge and this edge, and I'm gonna extrude and move it back, snap it, because we're of course gonna be duplicating this thing. So we want this to be perfect, or as close as perfect as possible. So let's grab these two guys now. And the first thing I'm gonna do is I wanna clean them up. So I'm gonna grab this guy right here. I'm gonna grab the edge loop, the center edge loop. I'm just gonna scale it. We can turn this off now. Let's go to the front view. So I scale it on X so that it's completely flat, and then I'm gonna snap it to the grid. There we go. Now I'm gonna do a mirror, and this mirror is gonna be on world X positive, so that whatever we have on this side gets duplicated to this other side. Same for this one. I'm gonna hit apply. We need to definitely grab this guys, snap them to the center. There we go, and apply. There we go. So now, as you can see, we have these two pieces. Now, I'm actually gonna flip the normals on this guy, and you're gonna see why in just a second. I'm gonna grab this guy, I'm gonna say mesh display, and reverse the normals. So this like gray area is over here. We grab both objects, combine them, mesh, combine, and now I'm gonna grab these two edges and these two edges, and we're gonna bridge, and the bridge will connect them, right? So now, if I press number 3, or just keep this like it is right now, you're gonna see that we get this very, very nice effect, which is close to what we had on the concept. And the reason why I need this right here is because now we're gonna extrude. So we're gonna extrude out like this, and you're gonna see that we get clean faces. So that's why we had to do that element right there. Now this edge right here and this edge right here, I definitely want to bevel. Let's see how much we can bevel it. It's about, it's not ideal. I kind of want to do a smooth on this one though. I think I'm going to do it. So I'm going to add one support edge right here, one support edge right here, one support edge right here, and one support edge right here. And when we press smooth, as you can see, we're going to get a very, very nice effect on this sort of like leather thing. However, no, it's not looking, yeah, it's not working. It's not working. And if it doesn't work, we just go back and make it work. So what can we do? Well, first, mesh display, soften edge might be a good idea. That's definitely gonna help. It does feel a little bit too sharp on certain areas. So I think grabbing all of the edge loops going around the object might be a good way to soften things up. So let's bevel them. A little bit of a bigger fraction, maybe 2 segments. That definitely helps, as you can see. That's a smoother effect. And then some of this we definitely need to bevel. There we go. See how that softens the curvature of the object. Maybe this one as well. Just bevel. It's kind of like adding a division. The only like advantage of doing this with bevel is that it averages out everything. So we get a nicer transition. See how it kind of like opens up and smooths out the whole thing. This one definitely needs one more. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to smooth this out. I want to keep it soft. Now, there's a problem here. I forgot to select certain areas. Everything is good on this side, but not on the other side. No problem. Shift, right click. And we're going to say mirror. But this is going to be on X negative. And apply. So now the bevel is going to be on both sides. Perfect. So this is our low poly. This is our element, right? And this guy, eventually, we're gonna, of course, like duplicate to the other side. Let's move the pivot point. I'm gonna press D and X to snap it to the grid. And eventually, when we rotate this guy, we're gonna rotate to the other side, okay? So that's what we're gonna do. However, I do think that this is one of those elements that we definitely wanna have a mirror object from. So we're gonna go to these faces right here, delete them, I grab all of these vertices, snap them at C and at X like that, and then at this one, I'm gonna mirror to Z negative, apply. And that way we're gonna have this element going around our health potion, as you can see right there. Very cool, right? Now, here's where the fun part begins. Before I duplicate this and rotate it 45 degrees, it would be a good idea to create UVs. That way, I'm gonna save myself some time. So I'm gonna go UV. I'm gonna say delete UVs. I'm gonna do UV planar mapping, which is my method. I've talked about this one before. And then we're gonna say UV 3D cut and sew UV tool. And in this case, I think a cut down a seam line. Probably this inner seam line might be better. There we go. And a cut here in the middle should be more than enough. I'm gonna go UV, go to the UV editor, grab all of this, guys, Control U to unfold, and there we go. That's a great UV for what we're gonna be doing later on with the texture. So Control D, now we duplicate this 45, or we duplicate this and rotate this 90 degrees. And here is where we would definitely want to grab like these vertices right here, or probably this one's right here. I'm gonna grab this ones and I'm gonna push them down so that you can see kind of like an overlap, right? Like how this thing kind of like hugs the surface and one thing is on top of the other. Okay, so there we go. Now if we take a look, this looks very, very cool. We have this like leather thing going around the object, and everything seems to be doing a proper transition. We do need the little spheres. Those are super easy. I'm just gonna grab a sphere here. Let's rotate this so that it matches the perspective of the object, like about there. We can even go to the front view to make sure that we match the size perfectly. Just about there. We flatten this thing out, move it up, like about there. And then, very important, we are gonna freeze the transformation, delete history. We're gonna move its pivot point to the origin, so D and X. D and X, there we go. And then we're gonna duplicate, rotate this 40 or 90 degrees, and it should be right there. That's one way to do it. You could, of course, mirror. Now it's easier. I could just grab this guy. Again, freeze transformation, delete history. Right-click, Shift, and we're gonna mirror on C negative, apply. Should have that one there, perfect. And then we grab this one, delete history, freeze transformation, and there was gonna be on X negative, apply, and we should have it on the other side. We grab all of the elements, like both of them, we combine them, delete history, and freeze the transformation, then center the pivot point. So that now, if we need to move them all at the same time, they're gonna be moved at the same time. They all have UVs. Might not be the perfect UVs that we need, but they all have UVs. And there we go. Give me just 1 second, guys. Very well. So now we continue with the string. Well, this like again, it's like a thick leather string that we have here. And I think one of the easiest ways to do it would be using a curve. So again, I'm gonna press this guy right here. I am gonna do a live surface and then create curve tools, EP curve, and I'm gonna start like kind of like going and I'm guesstimating where the string would be. So the string kind of goes like up here, and it does like a roll, and then another roll, and then it kind of goes over here, and then there's like a string going around, of course, right? But that's like roughly my string idea. Let's get this thing out, and let's start giving this thing. I'm gonna deselect geometry so that I can select geometry, and I'm gonna go into control vertex. Let's grab the curve, isolate it, just a second. Go into control vertex, and in this guy, I'm probably gonna use soft selection, so B, to select this guys, and just kind of like make it float a little bit. Chords and all of these things are one of those things that are quite tricky to get right because they have a lot of like physics into it. So if you really want this to look like super realistic, then you probably are gonna have to do a little bit of physics work, like simulation is what I mean. But that's why most of the times things just kind of look good on the strings, like strings, bells, like all of those sort of things. They definitely need a little bit more work to look nice. For instance, like this knots right here, those are gonna be tricky. Let's make this thing smaller, and I just want to kind of imply that there's like a knot going on, right? So make it seem like this thing is like going up on top of itself. There we go. That's better. Then I'm gonna grab a create NURBS primitives, and I'm gonna create a circle, which is just again a circular curve, and I'm gonna inject this in such a way that it overlaps this like place where the leather thing is going through, right? And I'm gonna grab both curves, and I'm gonna use the sweep mesh tool inside of Maya 2022, which is this one right here. Now we can play around with this. Let's increase the precision. There we go, that's better. Yeah, that's actually really good. I think the scale's a little bit too big, so let's make it slightly smaller. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. Now that we have this, we go back to the curve, to this original curve, and we start modifying it. For instance, definitely need to grab all of these vertices, move them down, rotate them a little bit, so that it looks and it seems like this thing is on top of everything, right? See how everything is kind of like adapting itself there? That's kind of what we're going for. There we go. Let's bring this one over here. Again, kind of like to indicate that there's a knot going. And it's a little bit easier to visualize it once you have the actual mesh, because with a curve, it can be a little bit tricky. That doesn't look half bad, right? And again, overlaps in this kind of situations, not the worst thing. For instance, this one, let's bring it beneath. There we go. That looks okay. Let's clean this curve a little bit more. Have a lot of points over here. Again, just try to make it seem like this chord is actually like falling in a very like realistic way, right? So following kind of like the surface of the potion, and floating. There we go. I'm not sure if we can erase a point. Yeah, okay, perfect. So we can erase points. If there's too many points there, for instance, we can totally erase them to help us like get the effect that we want. Perfect. I know this tutorial is going a little bit longer than usual, or the rest of our Christmas week, but hopefully you guys don't mind. Perfect. Perfect. So now that we have our little like knot there, I think it's a little bit thin though. So let's go here to the sweep mesh, and on the sweep mesh creator, we can increase the scale profile just a little bit. There we go. Something like that, I think works fine. Perfect. So we grab everything, like every single geometry. I mean, we delete history. That's going to delete the sweep meshes. We don't need the curves anymore. And now we can go into the UVs. UVs are really important for certain objects. Not everyone, not every single object. For instance, this glass bottle and the potion, I think we can get away without having UVs. But everything else we do need UVs. So these guys already have UVs. Remember, we did them before we did anything else. These spheres do not have UVs, or I mean, they do have UVs, but they're very ugly UVs. Those are like the typical sphere UV. It's not the end of the world if you use them, but I think we can have like cleaner UVs. So I'm gonna say UV planar mapping just to create a new UV on everything, and I'm gonna say UV 3D cut, and we're gonna cut like back here on all of them. So right about there, right about there, and right about there. There we go. So now we can grab them, UV editor, and just Control U, and there we go. We have all of this like coin-like shapes. This guy right here, like the objects that we created, that's one of the things that I love about the sweep mesh, is that the sweep mesh actually creates proper UVs when you create it. So as you can see, these are following the lines perfectly, and they're nicely laid out. So we're good to go. The only thing we're missing is this one right here, which has horrible UVs. So again, UV, delete UVs, UV, we do a planar mapping, and then UV 3D cut, and we're gonna do cap. You guys know this one, cap, and across. And now when we unfold this, Control U, there we go. We're gonna have a nice effect over there. Now, what I'm gonna do is I am gonna grab this guy right here, this guy's right here, and this guy's right here, all of them. I'm gonna go into the UV editor. We're gonna grab everything here. Control L is the shortcut to layout, and everything is gonna be nicely laid out. As you can see, everything's going in like a vertical way, which is great, right? Because we're gonna be able to texture this properly. And you can take this into Substance Painter, texture it normally, but in this case, or for this specific tutorial, tomorrow we're gonna see how to set all of these things up inside of Marmoset. Inside of Marmoset. So yeah, hang on tight, guys, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.